Hello and welcome to Post Game Theory. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today we're going to break down Scoot Henderson, a player that I've wanted to break down for a few months now. I've been hopefully waiting for a little turn in play, but it was kind of coming up here on needing to probably do a video on Scoot, given that he's an incredibly important player league-wide. He is a big piece of what the Portland Trailblazers rebuild is hanging on right now, and the full season has not been great for Scoot. He's averaging 12 points, 3 rebounds, 5.2 assists, shooting just 42% from the field and 35% from three now. 5.2 assists versus 2.8 turnovers, so it doesn't even really have the 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio you look for from a point guard in the NBA. But we have good news. Scoot Henderson, over the last week and a half or so, has been quite good. If you look at his last 4 games where they've really given him a chance to play and given him a chance to get some run, he is actually playing quite well. He had 39 and 6 assists with only 4 turnovers in a game against Brooklyn. He had 16 and 6 in a game against the Clippers where they got blown out by like 30. The better one that I thought really kind of showcased some real improvement actually was he had 21 and 11 assists in a game against Houston earlier this weekend on Saturday. And that was actually kind of impressive because Houston's defense is quite good. We're not going to break down that one though. We're going to actually break down the Portland game against Chicago on Sunday night that Portland won, where he played 38 minutes, had 25 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, had 2 steals. I thought he was okay defensively. He's obviously had some issues with fouling throughout the course of his career. He averages like 3 fouls per game. In this one, he only fouled once, which was a nice departure. We're going to just kind of run through it. This was a really positive game for Scoot. You know, at some point, if, you know, this little stretch of play doesn't equate to like long-term gains, maybe we will break down a negative game of Scoot down the road. I don't know that this 4-game stretch necessarily says who Scoot is long-term, but it's been a really positive 4-game stretch. I think that it looks like in some respects, not in all respects, but in some respects, he could be turning a corner in terms of keeping his dribble alive, in terms of figuring out how to gather around players. In the G League, what I really liked was the confidence with which he played with his gathers. And the confidence with which he was able to get to the rim and finish. The results were a little bit more mixed in the G League than maybe what the skill level would indicate, something that's kind of happening with Dylan Harper at Rutgers as well. If you look through his high school numbers, you saw like kind of strange numbers, but that were like right around like 50% or so around the basket. But if you looked at like the skill set and the way that he extended and finished, you could see a real talent for being able to get to the basket and actually put the ball in the basket efficiently. So let's talk about Scoot Henderson. Let's just kind of dive into what we saw against Chicago tonight. I will mention Chicago's defense, not very good. Let's just be transparent about it. We just did a recent Alex Sarr game against the Chicago defense. We know that Chicago defense with Nikola Vucevic as the drop big is not particularly effective, but given that this is coming over a really solid 4-game stretch from Scoot, I'm pretty comfortable being able to break this one down and talk through it. So let's just jump in and dive into Scoot Henderson. Okay. So what we've got here is just an early ball screen. DeAndre Ayton this year, I feel like has tended to set step up screens. So here Scoot is just going to get downhill and try and attack Nikola Vucevic. Instead, he realizes that Kobe White here is kind of caught on this screen. This is one of those situations where I think on step-ups particularly, just think about the angles at play here. Right. And this is where like being really strategic and getting a lot of experience with your screener really matters. And by and large, I have not loved DeAndre Ayton as a screener during his time in Portland. And I think that getting Scoot with a better screener like a Donovan Clingan consistently would really, really help matters. But even just like think about the way that Kobe White's going to get around this screen, right? This is a step up screen. He is parallel here. Scoot is going to go around this screen and get to here and try to get to a step back, side step 3, right? With the way that this screen is angled, Kobe's just going to be able to get around it pretty easily, right? Now, Kobe isn't the best at getting through screens. He even gets like kind of contacted here. But as you'll see, as he kind of starts to navigate this thing, Kobe gets caught because he kind of steps here and then gets here, right? In my opinion, on a play like this, Scoot is best off just trying to attack Vucevic and getting downhill. What he might be seeing here is that Denny is trying to relocate maybe into the dunker spot, wherever they want to put him. And he's a little bit worried about the traffic underneath the rim. But to me, this is just a little bit of Scoot kind of letting Kobe White off the hook here because of the way the screen is angled. If it's going to be a step up from Ayton here, the best bet is to get downhill and try and attack this guy who is not a particularly fleet of foot pick. Instead, Scoot decides to settle for a step back. You get the side view contest. He's not quite a good enough pull-up shooter yet, I think, to be able to consistently rely on this. Misses the shot short, easy rebound. Just the little things, right, of kind of learning and getting all of these reps in the NBA. Again, Ayton's a questionable screener at the best of times, in my opinion. So these are just the small things that I look for in guards in terms of just like kind of understanding, I don't want to say the assignment, but understanding what it takes in order to attack screens effectively. So this one now, it's got Josh Giddey on him. We're going to get kind of a low screen here where Ayton's going to slip. Ayton does tend to be more of a slip screen kind of guy. Scoot's going to try and get downhill, and then Ayton's going to roll. Ayton has been ridiculously effective at the basket this season. His problem is that he's settled way more often for mid-rangers than we've seen previously. Really, this started at the end of last year for Portland. But, I mean, I think he's finishing at like 85% at the rim this season. It's ridiculous with Ayton. So this one, you get the roll to the rim here. Kobe White has to be pretty cognizant. But also, because of Vooch, Zach LaVine typically has to step in here to try and be available so that Scoot can't turn the corner. Because you get this little same side help, Scoot recognizes the same side help effectively here, hits the kick out. Now we're going to drive. And now we're going to find another kick out. I think this is a really effective possession from Scoot. He's not going to get any sort of, statistical anything here. I like that he diagnoses the same side help. Ball is on target. Kick out here. Kind of slips the screen there. And Scoot just, decides to pivot. He sees that LaVine is going to sag in here. As soon as LaVine sags in again, Scoot puts it on the money for Kamara. Kamara just misses. Pretty good possession. Still no, stats or anything for Scoot. This one I did not really like either. I don't really love this decision from Ayton to try and seal a 250-pound, 34-year-old dude where your best advantage isn't in the post. Your best advantage, if you're DeAndre Ayton, is to use your speed and to use your downhill rim running ability to attack. So really, he should go set a screen for Scoot here. But, Scoot decides he wants to try and get DeAndre a touch. I don't love the decision to make this pass either. You can already see Scoot still has the ball in his hand. Vooch's hand is already here fronting. This is just not a good decision from Scoot. It's not a good decision from DeAndre. But Giddey kind of throws a little looping, goofy pass there, and Scoot's ready. He's aggressive. He's willing to attack the ball here. And I'll say this for Scoot, like, the guy plays hard. I do feel he consistently is engaged in the play. It's just the intelligence sometimes with the experience doesn't always allow him to be as effective as possible. But this one, I love the reactivity. I love the play. You see him get up higher than Giddey there even to try and be able to tip this. Like this is a good example of like Scoot's reactive athleticism here, right? Like Josh Giddey probably has 6 or 7 inches on Scoot here, and Scoot's fingertips are higher than Giddey's to be able to tip this ball backward. Really aggressive. I love it. He goes, gets this ball, gets the loose ball, gets an easy bucket. I felt like that's the play that really got him going tonight. Getting that tip, getting that easy bucket. Now we're going to get into, the DeAndre Ayton screening experience, which, oh boy. Okay, so it's ball screen here. We're going to go around. So my issue with this screen is just that there's no contact and there's no, there's no downhill pressure. I know he's trying to short roll into this massive little pocket that Vucevic has created here by being willing to play so deep in drop. Sure enough. Okay. Hits the pocket pass, little spin from Ayton. Beautiful work. Great play from DeAndre here. He does a good job. I just don't like the screen. I don't like leaving the screen early to flip your hips into this pocket area. I would like to see contact on the screen here. I don't think there's any reason for there not to be contact on the screen here. He just decides to leave early. Look, it works out. This massive pocket is here. Good pocket pass from Scoot. Goes up, elevates up over the top of Vooch. Good assist in the ball screen from Scoot. Solid play. It's just, this is kind of the, everything that Scoot and some of these other guards like Shaden are working with in terms of screening from time to time. Next play. I like this one. You get to see Scoot, active on the weak side defensively here. I think he's probably sagging a little bit too deep into the paint here. There's not really too much of a reason for him to be that deep. He is guarding Dalen Terry, who's kind of a non-shooter, but I think that he could probably be a little bit tighter to Dalen. But active, quick reactivity again, deflection. They have to reset the offense. Good play there. So you get the Denny Avdia loop through here. You get Ayton setting the screen and coming to be an outlet. And then you're going to get Scoot here to come and get this ball from Ayton in a DHO. You can see that Dalen Terry here overplays the DHO, rejects it. So Scoot smartly decides just to come loose here. Gets to his right side step 3. Ball doesn't go in. But I will say the mechanics look just like a little bit cleaner here to me. I think the base looks good here. You can't really see it because this woman in front here is there. But you can see he looks like he's straight up and down. It doesn't look like there's quite as much involvement. I still think he probably brings the ball a little bit too close to his head. We'll talk about that through the rest of the video. He is at 35% from 3 this year. That's a really big factor for Scoot. I love that he's, these last few games been a little bit more willing just to fire from 3. from time to time. If you look through these past 4 games, 8 for 10 from 3 against the Nets, 2 for 7 from 3 against the Clippers, 3 for 5 against Houston. He went 3 for 8 tonight from 3. Part of this great run has been that he has shot the ball really, really well and probably a little bit above what we've seen from Scoot, especially that Nets game. But I think that the mechanics are looking pretty good here, at least off the catch like this. I do think that he does have like a little flair with his right hand as he lets go of the ball. Maybe not. Doesn't look that bad. Yeah, doesn't look that bad. That one came off clean. But yeah, by and large, I think a big reason why Scoot has been effective is just the willingness to fire from 3. If he's a 35% 3-point shooter, he probably should be willing to fire from 3 like this. And so far this year, that's what he's been. This one, I love the competitiveness. Josh Giddey just kind of recklessly driving here. Josh will do that from time to time. I love how, he is probably beaten by the time he's here. You see the recovery speed. Scoot's foot is in front of Giddey here at this point. Giddey can't use his size to his advantage. That means where he can just use his shoulder to try and brush off Scoot, right? Giddey tries to extend out. Scoot uses his length. He has like 6'10" wingspan. Makes it just a little bit harder. Forces the miss, right? This is a reckless drive from Giddey. I don't love it. I think it's a bad choice from Josh. But this one here, I love how he just rides him to the baseline and forces a really tough miss. This one, I like that, he's already trying to get around the screen here from Williams. I think he's probably a little bit too far off of LaVine to start this play. Given that it's same side, I'd probably really like to see Scoot here as opposed to here in terms of starting position. So let's, kind of talk through it. So he starts here. Just with the way this is setting up, right? You see Vooch already driving this way. You should anticipate, given that this is Zach LaVine, that this is setting up to be like some sort of Chicago action, zoom action, right? Where you're going to get a screen from Williams, going to get a pseudo screen from Vooch, and then you're going to have LaVine come and take this dribble handoff to be able to try and get some penetration or be able to step back from 3. I like that he does step up eventually. I think that it would have helped him to be a little bit closer to start. That's ultimately why LaVine is able to create just this little bit of separation here, in my opinion. And now it's on him and DeAndre Ayton to try and communicate through this. Scoot is kind of already back in the play here, but DeAndre has to be fairly available here to be able to guard Vooch on this play. This is still a fairly big pocket here, potentially, where if DeAndre commits this way, Vooch is going to be able to get this bucket easily here. Really, what I like that teams tend to do is kind of peel switch this. They'll have DeAndre come up and guard LaVine, Scoot, just slide down onto Vooch, hope that the lob doesn't come. Scoot probably makes the decision here to try and wall up a little bit too early on LaVine's gather. That allows LaVine just to kind of extend past with that left stride. And now he's just able to get kind of a clean look at the basket here after LaVine has sunk back. Again, like they don't seem to be peel switching. So, that's not something you can really blame Scoot on. Can't, I guess, blame DeAndre. At the end of the day, I would prefer to see DeAndre contest this ball. But, what can you do? And again, Scoot has to be closer to LaVine earlier in that set. So here, it's going to get a few catch and shoots. I think all 3 of Scoot's threes tonight were catch and shoot threes. I like the vision here from Shaedon Sharpe. He sees Dalen Terry sink in here to try and bump the roll early on. Beautiful live dribble pass from Sharpe here. And again, I think that this looks very simple. In terms of the catch and shoot three, this looks pretty clean to me. I'm pretty happy with these mechanics. Ball comes out of his hand pretty cleanly. I think this is projectable for Scoot. I will mention that this is kind of one where you can see that he's probably bringing the ball back a little bit too far to his head, which creates just like a little bit of extraneous motion for the shot to potentially go wrong, right? When you start to bring the ball back to your head, your release point can kind of waver just because there's more extraneous motion. But what I like here is that ball goes in the hoop and that the base looked strong. Everything else looked clean. You know, the shot looks much better than what it did a year ago with Scoot. I feel better about the shot at least. Here, he's got Modest Bazelis on him, decides just to turn and step back. I think this is a player that you can attack at the end of the day in Bazelis. He's not been a very good defender for Chicago or in the G League last year. This is a mismatch that I think you should be able to try and attack. Levine decides, or Scoot here decides just to try and get to this spinning, kind of two-legged fadeaway step back. Balance doesn't look too bad. There is 5 seconds left on the shot clock, so I don't want to be too harsh and be like, oh, he needs to, hit this pass here. I mean, Levine's right here. This is probably a steal if he does that. Maybe could hit Toumani Camara, but Kamara's not a great three-point shooter. It's fine. It's 5 seconds left on the shot clock. The ball just doesn't go in, right? That's not ideal. So this one, at least Ayton decides to stay at the mesh point of the screen a little bit longer. Because he decides to stay, that gives Scoot just like that little bit of extra time. I would like to see a little bit more contact, personally, on the screen from Ayton, but I at least like that he stays just that extra split second longer. This is the one that I thought was happening earlier. Again, he sees Giddey sag in. Giddey takes this step here. This lunging stride here. He's got a corner three-point shooter wide open here. Kamara again misses, unfortunately. Could have been an even bigger night assist-wise for Scoot, but that's a good read from Scoot. Made the right play there. This one, 14 seconds left on the shot clock. What I like here is that Scoot just decides to go. I think that he just sees Ayo Dosunmu get like flat-footed there just for that split second. He says, I am fast enough to beat this player. So he just decides to go. Let's do it. Let's just be aggressive. Let's try and attack. Again, this is one of my favorite drives from Scoot in this game. He had a couple like this where he goes, keeps the handle. He's strong, man. Like this dude, what I've always loved about Scoot and why I had him as the number 2 player in that class is that I've loved the ability from Scoot to be able to utilize his athleticism functionally. He's not like some 40-inch vertical athlete. He's not some guy that has like some crazy immense first step. He has a good first step, but it's not wildly, impactful. To me, it's the functional way that he can use his strength to shield off dudes like Ayo Dosunmu, who are way older than he is, who is stronger than he is in theory, who's bigger than he is. He uses this arm here just to kind of keep him at bay, uses his hip strength to kind of keep him on his hip here, keeps the handle alive. And then I love the Euro here. One step this way, Euro this way, elevate up over the top of Giddey again, which you can do because you've already beaten him to a loose ball. This ball goes in. That's perfect. That's what we're looking for. Andy thought he got fouled by Giddey. He might have actually on that one. He wants the foul call. You're not going to get those yet until you start playing a little bit better, I don't think. Here, you can see when he starts like putting the ball between his legs before he, right as soon as he crosses half court, trying to set up guys, that's where you can see that he's really starting to feel himself a little bit. So this one, if I remember correctly, yeah, you get to see, again, just like a really sharp gather. So this is kind of a dual screening action here. The reason teams like to run this is because, with Ayton, for instance, let's say Scoot decides to try and drive here. You can have Ayton set a screen here for Grant to come over and kind of flare for a three. Then Ayton can roll to the rim and be available like in a pocket there. There are a lot of different options here. This one, Ayton sets the screen. This is a good screen from DeAndre Ayton, I think. I'm going to call it the good ones if I see bad ones. If I'm going to call it the bad ones too. This one, he just gets Vooch downhill, right? And realizes, okay, I can gather and I can put all sorts of pressure on this player here. I just have to beat 34-year-old Nikola Vucevic, who's one of the worst defenders in the league, in drop coverage. I just have to beat him and get downhill. So he is able to kind of Euro step through, forces the Giddey help here, or forces the Levine help here, and just shoots this ball out to the corner to Denny. Now, again, what I will note here, around surrounding Scoot right now on the court. Denny had a good shooting year last year, a reluctant shooter that teams don't really care about. Tamani Kamara, unbelievable defender, like a borderline all defense guy, not a shooter at this point. Jeremy Grant, 38% three-point shooter, guy you have to guard. DeAndre Ayton, total non-shooter. They do play him with a lot of non-well-spaced lineups, which means that it's a little bit harder for him from time to time. That's not to excuse what we've seen from him, because he doesn't have a plan often when he drives and sometimes gets himself into trouble. But this play, for instance, you can kind of see the vision for what happens if they do get real spacing around him and force guys to help at the basket consistently. He's able to make these cross corner, not cross corner at this point, but these opposite corner reads and create opportunities. And then, oh, by the way, he's athletic enough to go get this rebound. Again, he's super engaged. Then reacts really well. Finds DeAndre Ayton. Ayton finishes. Just terrific. Just terrific. Let's get to a quick little note from Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action. There are over 10 million members. Like I said a second ago, they invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks always puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. We are big fans of Prize Picks here. We absolutely love the app and what they're doing for the daily fantasy sports scene. Download the app today and use code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use that code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, so this one, Scoot on defense here. Sorta gets beat by Io. Really, what he's trying to do here is just force him into the help. Io does a good job kind of shielding him off, but then I think Scoot gets his hand in here. Ends up kind of knocking this off of Io's foot. Again, I think Scoot worked really hard tonight defensively. I thought he was pretty active, was pretty engaged. This one later in the second quarter. Great push by Kamara. Find Scoot in the corner. Again, this one might even be like one of the better looks we get at the shot. Very tight. Everything's just right in there. Straight up and down. Balance looks good. Coordination looks good. Ball goes in. Perfect. If he can make that shot, it's a huge difference maker for him as a player. I don't even know if he made a pull-up three tonight. I mean, God, if he can make pull-up threes, like then it's a real game changer. But even just that shot's a real difference maker for him in terms of playing off of different players as stars. This one now, I love the way that he navigates this. He just ultimately makes a bad decision here. I love the way that he thinks through this early. So Denny comes to set this screen. Io and Kobe decide to switch this. He sees that he's got DeAndre trailing here. DeAndre is going to come set a screen and he's going to try and get into the paint and attack. So I love how low he gets here. To me, I would love it if Denny was like kind of rushing out to get to this shot here and get to this spot, because DeAndre is rolling to the rim, so Kobe White has to tag here as the weak side defender. I would love it if Denny Avdia kind of relocated a little bit quicker here. It feels like to me that Scoot just kind of looking at where he's looking right now. His head is turned this way toward Zach LaVine. I think he's trying to freeze LaVine as opposed to freezing Kobe White, who is really the conflict defender here, to use like option terms in the NFL or in college football, really more like it. He throws this lob up. It's a no-look lob. DeAndre hasn't even really left his feet yet. It feels forced to me. I think this ball needs to go here to Denny. I think Scoot stopped kind of looking at Denny on this, like right here. You can see him peek this way. He kind of turns the corner. His eyes are kind of peeked this way here. And I think that he kind of ruled out Denny because Denny is in this area as opposed to filtering to the corner, filtering above the break here. I would like to see Denny run this just like a little bit more speed to be able to get behind the 3-point line. And then he turns his head here and then starts kind of staring down LaVine. But again, like I will note another factor here with the Blazers. Not a great shooter, not a great shooter. Jeremy Grant, like real shooter, not a great shooter. That allows literally every single defender for the Bulls. 1, 2, 3. Pat Williams has his foot on the paint there. 4. And Io is trailing to get back in this play. 5. Every single Bulls player is in the paint here. The reason for that is because there is no shooting on the court other than Jeremy Grant. That makes these windows really hard to see for young guards. And yes, I don't love the process here from Scoot to just completely kind of disregard the weak side here. That is an issue. But he kind of no-looks this ball. Honestly, I don't even think it's like a catastrophic lob. If Ayton could load up, and this is kind of knowing your personnel as a guard too, so this is a little bit on Scoot, but like if Ayton could load up here off of 1 foot and jump, as opposed to having to like gather here and go off of 2 feet, This is what people talk about when they say that DeAndre doesn't really get the most out of his athleticism and physicality on the court. He might be able to high point this ball ahead of Vooch. But it's also a bad pass. All of these things are accurate, and it's part of what makes the Scoot Henderson evaluation in general really, really hard right now. The context is bad. Also, he makes poor choices from time to time. All of these things can be true. But this one now, I like just a quick reversal here. Levine tries to sag down. Scoot shoots the ball out to Denny. Denny feels Levine be a little bit too active here. Try and sag to help. Kick out to Scoot. Third three in the second quarter, I believe. Maybe the second three of the second quarter. He had one late in the first, maybe. But again, shot prep here is great. Great base. No worries. Things all look pretty clean. Straight up and down as a shot. Great release. Ball goes in. He looks confident. He honestly, the biggest thing that I can say here within this is he just looks confident for the first time in a while to me. Like when you would watch him in the G League, when you would watch him early on in his career, he would just fucking go. Like he would just play and he would attack and he'd be relentless and he'd be aggressive and he had really sharp gathers and he was able to get to the rim. I feel like early in his career, he struggled with that a little bit. He struggled a little bit to have that same sense of confidence, probably because he's just a little bit inexperienced playing against really good players. But what I've seen here over the course of the last little while is it just like really the last week and a half, I guess we could say, the confidence just looks better. It just does. He's playing with verve again. This one, you get the 8 and screen. He rejects it. Io his shot way in here to try and help on this screen. Why Chicago's strategy here or why Io's strategy here is to help off of the only shooter on the court. And look, again, like Denny can make shots, but he's just not, he's a reluctant shooter. I mean, really, like maybe he's hoping that Pat can be there and Levine can be here. And then you have a, long X out from Dosunmu, but Chicago hasn't shown any propensity to be able to make these plays this season defensively. Scoot realizes it, recognizes it, live dribble pass, right out. Easy pickings. This one, I think that typically, again, like I want to point out that Scoot just like consistently gets to his spots. That hasn't really been an issue for him so far in his career. Like he gets paint touches pretty regularly. What I like about this one is that it feels like instead of just going up for an easy layup, or not an easy layup, but actually a very difficult layup here, which I think he would have done earlier, first 50 games of his career or whatever. I think he's actually trying to engage this player here and be ready and say like, okay, if he stays with DeAndre, I have a layup. If he comes to me, I just need to throw this ball up to Ayton and he'll go get it. Right. So Vooch ends up in kind of no man's land here. He's able to lob that ball up to DeAndre. And DeAndre puts it in. I think he's playing more reactively based on what the defense presents him than what I've seen previously. Like a lot of the times I've felt like he is driven with a plan in mind before he actually gets to the paint, as opposed to stopping, playing in the middle of the court, and then making a decision based off of what the defense does to him. That's a big, big change if he can make it happen. This one now, 4 seconds left in the second quarter. I like that he's the one taking the shot. I like that he's just confidently going, let me be the guy here. Let me try and take this shot. Yeah, he front rims it. But again, I think he separates reasonably well from Kobe White here. That's a little bit of daylight. Just front rims it. It's a good shot. Second half now. His third quarter was outstanding in this game, so I'm really excited to kind of talk through it. This one, I think he misses this three to start the third quarter. This one I grabbed because you can really see how far he brings the ball back toward his face. And it does just create that extra little bit of motion here that's extraneous on the shot, right? So you can kind of see how it feels like to me that the arc of the shot kind of changes a little bit shot to shot. I think he just needs to that's the last thing, just try and get your release ironed out a little bit more so that you're not always bringing it back too far this way and then shooting. Just has to simplify it a little bit more. Offensive rebound by Denny. I almost kind of wish he would shoot this, but I like that he does get it to Jeremy Grant. That's another assist. He sees that Grant's trailing, puts it right on the money, right in the pocket where Grant's going to want it. It's a beautiful assist. It's great work. This one, Ayton. That's one of the better screens I've seen from DeAndre Ayton. So Ayton screen, roll. Scoot's just attacking Vooch now. I like that he doesn't just get downhill immediately here. He's patient here. Look at that little hesitation step, that little gallop. Still has a massive pocket here to be able to hit Ayton on a pocket pass. So he knows that Vooch has to keep somewhat honest here. Beautiful. Beautiful little floater. That's a fairly easy shot. Now, that looks different when it's Rudy Gobert and not Vooch. And that's what I'm most excited to see next for him is what happens when it's Rudy Gobert. What happens when it's Ivica Zubac like it was in the game against the Clippers, right? That's the problem he has to solve next. But I like this. Beautiful little floater. Easy. Hits it. Another just sweet assist here from Scoot. Nothing crazy. Ayton's going to set a little down screen. Ayton's going to come, or Avdia's going to come here. Get an open three. Pat Williams makes a choice to go under the screen. I don't totally know why he would do that. But ball placement here again. Perfect. Right on the money for Denny. I mean, look, Denny will shoot if you go way under the screen like this. But yeah, that was a wild choice. Now, Scoot, we're getting downhill. Now we're playing with confidence. He just says, okay, I can relentlessly attack this player. I'm going to make it so that Vooch is the one to pick me up in transition. We've got a 3-on-3. Inside out. Long strides. Extends out. Gets fouled. Love to see him make the shot. But Vooch knows he hacks him. Calls it out. Here, like, kind of some good and some bad, right? Like, I feel like he's just not wildly engaged here. Part of this is that Io Desumu threatens to like kind of cut here, which means he kind of looks up and kind of sees if he has to be available for the cut. Part of this is that Buzelis, not a wildly effective shooter yet. I like, though, that he's engaged now. He's looking. Blazers kind of olayed here on defense a little bit. He's still like not wildly engaged, but you see the strength here. He is able to just stand up Buzelis, much bigger dude, not stronger, but bigger. Stands him up, walls up, forces the turnover. Now we're out running. And now we're just throwing like a live dribble lob. I mean, again, like, this is one of those times where you really see DeAndre have to load up off of 2 feet here. Like, he's going to stop and load up and then jump as opposed to going up off of 1 foot. Also, like, real case that DeAndre should know his personnel here. He's got Shaden behind him. There's just no communicating here between these two, it feels like. I mean, what you would love to see is like DeAndre stop here and kind of try and seal off Io Desumu. Instead, they both go for the ball. Shaden has to like Neo Matrix his way out of this play. And it's just a way harder finish for Ayton than it would have been for Sharp. And again, like the load up, he's barely off the ground by the time he catches the ball here. I think this is a good lob from Scoot, honestly. Like, I think this is right on the money. Should be right on the money for Sharp. Just DeAndre kind of doesn't decide to seal. He ends up going up for this ball. Smokes the layup. Not ideal. Fourth quarter now, or no, third quarter now still. Draws the foul. What's important to call out here, as we go back to this previous one, what's important to call out here is that there's just very few seconds left on the shot clock, so he has to do something on this. 4.3 left on the shot clock as he catches this inbounds pass. So he just has to go. Julian Phillips is actually like a pretty decent defender. I think there is a real case that this ball needs to go out to Denny here. This is just an easy same side kick out. Probably should send it that way. But I love that he is able to extend. Again, like, I mean, God. Tamani Kamara, man. What a player. Is that Kamara? I think it is Kamara. Just trying to make life easier for Scoot. Seal off this help defender here. The good news is for Scoot, he gets bailed out by a foul call. You can see there. Really, though, the decision you would like to see as he takes this little like crab steppy kind of dribble there is once you split these defenders, Denny here is wide open. And this really should just be a kick out to Denny, and Denny should shoot this. And I'll even say this here again, after this step as well, really should probably just be a kick out to Denny. You've still got 2 seconds left on the shot clock. Ultimately, I think he just kind of made a choice to go into the lane and try and drive and score. This is kind of one of those predetermined situations again that I think by and large have gotten him into trouble earlier in his career. He gets bailed out with a foul call here. It's great. But I do think that it would really, really help him if he predetermines kind of these decisions a little bit less and continues to look out on kickouts. He had 8 assists tonight. It was not a significant issue tonight. So this one was just sick. This is like the older version of Scoot that, again, I really loved when got to evaluate him in high school and at the G League Ignite, right? Splits this defender, bam, between the legs crossover. Julian Phillips is flying this way now. Able to stop on a dime, keep the dribble alive, gather, use the strength of his frame here to seal off or power off against a guy that is quite big and strong comparatively to him. And hopefully get a shot up. He draws a foul here again, which is good. Now, again, official here at the bottom of the screen calls the foul. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you love to see from Scoot. Honestly, I think real case here. Crossover. I would love to see him stop here and turn and just kick this to Shaedon Sharpe for an open three. I think he actually has that flexibility and coordination to be able to do that. Here, as he stops, he could go right. I think try and Euro step left here instead of doing what he does, which is continue along his line and try and get this ball out to Sharpe. But again, works out well. Powerful, goes up toward the rim with confidence, gets fouled. I love that he's been drawing fouls. That's a thing that, by and large throughout the course of his career, he just unfortunately has not done at a level commensurate with a super, super high level guard, only averaging 3.3 free throw attempts per game throughout the course of his career at this point. But again, if you look kind of through the last few games, has a 6 free throw game against Houston, had 8 against Brooklyn. Tonight in this game, he had, let's see here, as I pull up the box score again, 8 free throw attempts in this game, right? I love that he's trying to get downhill more consistently. I love that he's kind of, what I was concerned with early in the preseason was kind of his gathers. It felt like were a little bit off to me. It does feel like now that he's just kind of playing with aggression that the gathers have kind of come back a little bit. The ability to kind of make these big, long strides and power through physically, right? So 1, 2, he's probably gathering a little bit too far here, I think. I would like to see him take another dribble here at the elbow and then really stride out and extend. If you do that, maybe you force the help here from Jalen Smith and you can hit the dump off. There are different options here available to you if you do that. But this is, all of these different options that he's created here that I've said that I would like to see him do this. I'd like to see him do that. It all comes because he's so capable of getting into the middle of the paint like this. This is kind of why I still haven't given up on him at all. He gets to the paint in a real tangible way. Even if the decision-making tree has not been great throughout the course of his career, he does do something at a really high level that should allow him to find success. And he can do it without a ball screen, which is the hardest thing that you can find. NBA teams generally think they can improve decision-making and they can improve the shot. It's this ability to actually separate from your man, get by him, get into the paint. That's the hardest thing. The fact that he can do that, that's critical. Here, steal here. And again, the gather and the powerful strides. That's what I loved from Scoot coming in. The hesitation here, crossover, the gather right across Julian Phillips' face. Gets all the way to the rim, finishes with the left hand. You can tell he's pumped. He's screaming in Julian Phillips' face now. I think he's more kind of screaming at the bench, to be honest with you, but it looks like it's in Phillips' face. So now, what happened here? Why did I grab that last clip? Oh, this one I grabbed because he just totally brain fades on a box out. This is hard. You've got, guys kind of flying everywhere here, right? But from where I see it, you've got this here. You've got DeAndre as the trailer guy here on Jalen Smith. Really, Scoot should be picking up Julian Phillips coming through on the back end here, making sure to get a body on him. He just kind of stops, and that allows Phillips to kind of sneak in here and be able to get to the rim and get this easy put back. Unfortunately, that one's on Scoot. Attention to detail needs to just be a little bit better in transition there. But on this one now, trailer, again, like this might be the purest way that you can see that the shot prep is way improved. Catches off the hop here. That looks very clean. Just short rims it. I would love to know, somebody that's maybe there and like seeing him shoot in person. Is it like a offhand thing where the offhand might be just like a little bit too involved? Is it that he's not getting quite as much engagement through his lower half as what I'm hoping that he is, just with the improvement of his overall mechanics? But he does tend to front rim on the misses. And honestly, given the way that this trajectory comes out of his hand, I think I can say, looking through here again as I watch, again, brings the ball very close to his face. And it seems like he hangs on to this ball just a split second too long. You be the judge. I feel like he hangs on to it just very, 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 very slightly too long. And at the end of the day, the trajectory just looks a little bit low. And it's a little flat, and he front rims it because it's flat. That's my read on it, is that, again, the release point is kind of wavering just a little bit still. I think he has touch. Like, I think that he can shoot the ball and probably will be a pretty solid shooter at some point. Honestly, he might be a solid shooter now, given that he's shooting 35% from three. But there's like real room for growth even with him shooting at the level he's shooting at 35%. This one, you kind of get to just see the hand-eye coordination. So first and foremost, competitive rebound here against Jalen Smith, right? Able to hold off Jalen Smith, who's 6'10", 240 pounds probably at this point in his career. Goes up, gets this ball, holds him off. Now, kind of loose. Gathers it, crosses over. What I love here is this choice. He sees that Shaedon Sharpe is coming down as a trailer. I think he knows that Shaedon's here, probably back when he's here at like the mid-court mark. So what does he do? He attacks. As soon as he sees Kobe White step in this way, he scoops the ball out to Sharpe. So watch how reactive and like immediate this is from Scoot. So he doesn't make his turn until Kobe has made his choice. You can literally see him turning here, and he turns because Kobe's left foot is up in the air, which says that he's going this way because he's driving off of this right foot. As soon as that happens, Scoot turns and scoops it to Shaedon, who's downhill and is going to be able to straight line drive for an easy bucket. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome here. So now he has the ball, getting guarded by Levine. This is one that, late in the shot clock, I personally would love to see him hit Avdia here. As soon as these two have two on the ball, I think that Scoot needs to get this ball to Denny and create a 4-on-3. Instead, he crosses, uses that quick little hesitation move again. This is a wide cross, keeps the ball low to the ground, hesitates, gets Pat Williams kind of stuck in the mud there just for that split second here. I mean, if he can start to make this shot, things really change for him. Things really change. So yes, I would love to see him absolutely hit this little short roll here from Denny. I think this needs to be, as soon as Pat Williams steps up here and Zach LaVine is still here, I do think this ball needs to go here. What I will say though, again, this floor is like a little bit better spaced. This floor is definitely better spaced because you have Sharp, who guys at least guard, and you have Jeremy Grant way out high here, which is forcing Giddey out high here. So yes, this ball does need to just go to Denny, I think. But hey, if you can go and reject this screen, again, like, he can just beat these guys without a ball screen. Pat Williams isn't like the world's best defender, but he's not a bad defender. And he's 6'8", and he's strong as shit, and he's physical, and he's long. He has like a 6'11" wingspan. And Scoot is just able to beat him to the basket. If he can make that layup, life becomes much, much, much easier for Scoot Henderson. If you look at Scoot's finishing numbers overall this season, I mean, I haven't looked at them in a little while, but I would imagine they're not particularly good. He's shooting 51.2% over the full court this season. He's at 48.5% in the half court right now, which is just like terrible finishing numbers for any guard. So yeah, I mean, look, I like the process here in terms of once he decides to pass up the Denny short roll, I like that he's extending to finish here. Ball just has to go in at a certain point. I think it will at some point. That's the bet with Scoot, is that this stuff will work itself out as he continues to work. I think it'll go in at some point. Denny, by the way, tracks down the offensive rebound because that dude's an absolute winning basketball player, in my opinion. So DHO to Scoot. This is one where he probably like overdrives and, tries to do too much. We're 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. This is a bad decision. So Denny's going to kind of go out and get this ball out to Scoot. He's one-on-one with Levine. There's a lot of time left on the shot clock here. You've got 14 seconds. Again, say what you will about Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine has really, worked hard over the last few years to really improve himself on defense. I like here that Scoot, pad level, low man wins. Scoot tries to get lower here. He does play with great bend and flexibility. This is just one where he picks it up too early. He thinks he's going to be able to get to like this fadeaway. That's not really a good shot anyway. It's not the shot that the Blazers want as it is. To me, he really just needs to back this ball out here. He has his dribble still here. Back the ball out. But he has it, I would guess, predetermined in his head here, based off of how he's played in this game, to try to score. Just even getting rid of these possessions where he has like these predetermined reads. I keep saying this, but like getting rid of these possessions is probably the thing that will help his game the most right now. Continuing to learn, continuing to be reactive about what's happening around you as opposed to just going in and attacking. And he just gets caught in no man's land. Especially here, like you have nothing. You know that you don't have anything here. Just reset this. Live to fight another day. These are the turnovers that just absolutely kill you. Live ball turnover. Ball gets out to Kobe White. I mean, you'll see. I mean, the next possession is the one we're going to follow up here. Ball's obviously gone in the rim. It's a pick six. This one, though, I like that he just immediately gets this ball to Denny, and I like that he follows it up, right? So he feels like Denny has an advantage here. Because where is Denny's man? Nowhere to be seen. He's got a lead blocker. Just go. Get downhill against Vooch and see what happens. Euro step. Would like to see him make it, but, you know, Zach LaVine kind of asleep here. Scoot just jumps in, gets the offensive rebound, finishes it. It's outstanding. And then this, I think, is the last play we're going to talk about. Again, just kind of over penetrates, over drives here. You know, he was only had 2 turnovers going into the fourth quarter. And really both of these turnovers were completely turnovers that are inexcusable, but also just like can be easily avoided. So they decide to kind of trap Scoot now. This is where you just got to get the ball early to DeAndre. Create the 4-on-3 situation, live to fight another day. Doesn't have to be you that's driving into the paint here. Especially if you're taking a wide angle. I mean, look, he's got DeAndre just wide open here. I mean, look, like another thing about DeAndre, like not the best ball skill, right? Like it has to be very simple. I think Scoot will be really, really helped by playing with like Donovan Clingan, for instance, who just has a little bit more inherent ball skill than what DeAndre Ayton does. But this is also a really bad decision from Scoot. Over penetrates. You've got a dig here. You've got a defender right in front of you. You've got Vooch coming in here trying to recover. And still, at this point, as Giddey has committed, you have the dunker spot open, which is really where, again, now this ball should go that you've over penetrated. Fails to see that Giddey has kind of sunk back here onto Ayton and throws the lob, even though Giddey has kind of sunk back here. This is one where, like, I just don't really know what he's looking at, unfortunately. It's inexperience, obviously. Like, he's just really young and doesn't, you know, have the reps yet. He's still 20 years old. He turns 21 in, you know, I think the first week of February. But this is one where I just don't know what you're seeing. You missed the early short roll. You have Denny here. You have the dunker spot here. And honestly, really, you just need to be reading Giddey at this point and seeing what Giddey's going to do. He's predetermined this before. This is like the ultimate play, in my opinion, that tells me like he's still predetermining his reads a little bit too often. The fact that he threw this lob with 3 Bulls defenders in the area is just not. It's an unfortunate play to close on because he was so good throughout the course of this game. But unfortunately, it is one of those plays that does leave you with like a bit of a disappointed taste in your mouth as you kind of run through this. Let it play out. That's turnover, and that's on him. So the good news here is that like there is just a lot more positive to talk about with Scoot. There's so much more positive to be excited about. Really, to me, like the willingness to play with confidence, the willingness to play with like verve and just stride out in attack whenever you see some space. That's really critical to me. Also, the fact that he's shooting 35% from 3 now. Really, really critical for Scoot moving forward because it's a huge counter for that ability to be able to get into the paint, get into the lane. He can get where he wants to go. The fact that he's getting these paint touches is the hardest part. It's just the decision-making tree that continues to pop up, right? This isn't new where we kind of break down video of Scoot and we see, okay, like he makes a mistake here, he makes a mistake there, misses this read here, misses this read there. It is kind of as simple as he needs more reps and like needs to really be willing to like watch tape. And I'm not saying he's not doing this, but like be able to implement the tape that you're watching when you see a certain coverage into how to be able to attack it, right? That's the step. Those are the steps here, in my opinion. Those are the big steps that Scoot needs to be able to take. I think he's going to get there. These last 4 games, 5 games, whatever it's been, I really do think that we're seeing some growth. And again, the paint touches are the hardest part. He can get a paint touch without a ball screen. That is the hardest thing to do in the NBA, just point blank. Can he take that next step on the decision-making tree is ultimately going to tell the tale of if he's an all-star or if he ends up being kind of a bust and this is just a really solid 4-game stretch. I have some faith. I think they need to stick with him. Like there's no reason for the Blazers not to stick with Scoot Henderson at this point. Let him figure this out. Also, for the love of God, get him some spacing, please. Get him some shooters. Anthony Simons, like, you know, typically he's in the lineup, obviously didn't play tonight, but like even more, get him more shooters, give him more opportunities to have a well-spaced court because the reads become easier and that allows him to gain confidence. The fact that he had 25, 7, and 8 tonight on the court that he was typically playing with like Danny Avdia, Tamani Kamara, and DeAndre Ayton out there. And they did close, obviously, with the Grant and Sharp pairing, which at least gives them like a little bit more spacing. But just give them as much space as possible and see, you know, how this can work long term. That's what I'd love to see Portland do. At some point soon. They obviously have a very difficult situation at the trade deadline with all of their many veterans that don't really make sense on their roster, but they have to find a landing spot for because they're all somewhat overpaid, unfortunately, from DeAndre Ayton to Matisse Thybulle to Rob Williams, who just deals with injuries. He's certainly not overpaid when he's healthy, to certainly Jeremy Grant as well, if they could find a landing spot there. Tricky spot, but I like what I've seen over the last week and a half from Scoot. It's a good sign. Some of the concerning things are still there. We'll do another Scoot video at some point later this year, just because I will want to keep checking in on Scoot to see how this is going. But again, like I always thought Cade Cunningham's tape was a little bit better than what we've seen from Scoot early in his career. But just look at the power of spacing that the Pistons were able to give Cade Cunningham and how that's led to such an explosion from him this season, where he's erupted into like a borderline all NBA player. I think that would just make life way easier for Scoot to be able to have spacing, be able to have like a great screener. I think they have that in Donovan Clingan already, who has some ball skill, who can pass, who can make his life a little bit easier. That will just naturally occur as Clingan moves further and further into the lineup. But man, there are good signs here, at least for the first time. Really, I would argue like this season over like an extended 4 or 5 game sample. And that's what's to be excited about with Scoot Henderson. This has been Post Game Theory. Hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate you guys digging into the channel. We'll see you next time.